I'm Michelle Jarvie, and I'll be reading an excerpt from my book, Then and Now, Changed Perspectives of a Young Widow, for the Buzz Bookstore Excerpt Contest. Chapter 2, Depression. Then. I never thought I would be suicidal, primarily because my grandfather committed suicide, and I saw how it impacted my parents. I thought I'd never be able to understand the logic of taking one's own life. It's so selfish. He put his family through years of grief and guilt, always wondering if they could have done or said something different. However, considering Jay is dead and I'm throwing his clothes on the floor just so I can pretend to do his laundry, it suddenly makes sense. I've already reached the climax of my life, and now the man I was going to have kids with and retire with is gone. I'll never have a family again because I can't love another man. I married the love of my life, and I will be loyal to him forever. So what does that mean the rest of my days will look like? Go to work, not care about it because my husband is dead, scream at my coworkers inside my head when they talk badly about their husbands, feel my blood boil whenever I see a reckless driver who doesn't realize how close they are to taking away someone's life, punish myself for calling Jay during lunch because being on the road 1 minute earlier could have saved his life, figure out how to answer the question, "How are you?" without melting down, endure multiple panic attacks, answer the phone and feign interest in other people's lives, and then ingest Xanax at night so the nightmares and bloody imagery will forcibly stop and I will fall into unconsciousness so that I can be rested to repeat the cycle of hell tomorrow. This isn't a day I can continue living. I'm not living. I'm existing. Now, not hurting my family became the light I held on to throughout my depression and grief. Perhaps the most beneficial part of those widow groups was finally meeting a widow whose husband committed suicide. The guilt, shame, and loss she felt was something I knew I didn't want my family to feel or remember when they thought about me. I remember hearing her speak about all the questions that plagued her mind, such as, what if I had done this? How could he do this to me? Didn't he love me? Was life with me that terrible? Even today, when I have my most troubling days, which are remarkably infrequent, I go back to the knowledge above and remind myself that I can, in fact, live for someone else. 6 years ago, someone else was my friend who needed a listener, my mom who needed her daughter, my nieces who needed to know they weren't going to lose me too. Today, someone else includes my second husband. I never thought I would find another man I could love, or even one who would want to dwell in the brokenness of my life. When we first met, 3.5 years after Jay's death, I talked about my late husband and my hard days a lot. I was sure I was going to scare him away, for what 20-something male wants to deal with that? But Sean saw me not as a broken woman, but a woman who had lived life and understood the hardships that tested people to their core, who found their core. He saw a real person who didn't pretend that everything was perfect, but rather was real and cared about real issues, not makeup or waist size or shopping. He saw the strength and capacity of my heart because of how deeply I loved, and he knew, so he tells me, that I was a woman who would live with my priorities in the right places. I became a deep thinker because of those emotions, reflecting on philosophical questions such as, how does one really know great love? Is anything worthwhile in life easy? What does honoring a dead person look like? How have other depressed people in this world found a healthy way through it? Asking these questions became paramount to understanding who I am and how important it is for me to not dishonor Jay by giving up. I also started receiving help at month 13. My outside help consisted of 2 trauma therapists who kept my exploration of putting one foot in front of the other on track. This consisted of talk therapy, meditative practices, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing to reduce panic attacks. Perhaps the most important lesson I learned through these women was that while the pain will never go away completely, I can control its size. I was skeptical about the word control for a long time because all my reactions felt so automatic. I was even diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder to account for all my triggers. However, as I kept practicing the coping mechanisms, which I'll share below, I learned that water representing my pain would not always be boiling. The goal was to make it simmer. You can read the rest of this chapter online at michellejarvie.com or purchase the book at Amazon. Thank you for listening.